All right. Welcome back to the Prospect Avenue podcast. I am your host, Kris Baker. A ton of ground to cover this week on the Prospect Beat. So here we are recording on Tuesday, October 24th, the morning after the Sabres 3-1 loss to the Montreal Canadiens. We're not going to talk about that. We're not going to talk about the Sabres starting 2-4. We're not going to talk about the Sabres only scoring 13 goals through their first 6 games. And definitely not going to talk about the youngest team in the NHL for the second straight season, continuing to struggle, putting together home ice performances while wearing the traditional blue and gold uniforms of the Buffalo Sabres. Not going to talk about that. Not going to talk about why the black and red seems to get everything clicking for this young group. But yeah, we're just going to move right on. Again, this is a prospects podcast. And we're just going to dive right in because big news this week. One of the bigger names in the prospect ranks in recent memory, Matthew Savoie, was dispatched to the Rochester Americans for a conditioning loan on Sunday. Savoie will get a 2-week runway, up to 2 weeks. I have a feeling that they're going to use that entire 2 weeks. And in the immediate term, though, the expectation is that he makes his season debut Wednesday when the Amerks host Charlotte. Then they'll get him back on the ice Friday, again at home for a game against Laval. And then they'll all hop on a bus and head east down the 90 for a Saturday night matchup in Utica. So Savoie's been skating now for a couple weeks with the Sabres before the conditioning loan was formalized. And I think it's safe to say he's going to be a full go. And he's going to see some significant minutes once he gets going. So right now, it's just a matter of where in the lineup do you put Savoie? And I'm kind of having a hard time. I've gone back and forth on this since the move was made on Sunday, racking my brain over different combinations. I want to hear from you in the comment section below in this video. Tell me who you'd like to see Savoie lined up with when he makes his Amerks debut on Wednesday. I think I'm kind of settling on a combination, but I think part of the reason that I've been challenged with answering this question is we don't know if the Amerks top line centerman Brandon Biro is going to be ready to go. When you go back to Laval, iced different sets of lines both nights for their 2-game road trip in Laval. Amerks went 1-1. They picked up a victory on Wednesday and then came out and lost on Friday before heading back to the state of New York. And the Amerks were without Michael Mersch, their captain for both of those contests. He seems to be back and ready to go. But Biro was not in the lineup on Friday night, and he is considered day-to-day. So not sure if he's going to be available. And I think that's kind of the domino that needs to fall to understand truly where Savoie is going to fit into this lineup. That's the domino, but also really, do they want to put Savoie at center or do they want to use him down the wing? I think that's another question. We saw Savoie after his WHL season in 2022-23 come in and be thrown right into the fire in the 2023 playoffs in that series against Hershey, and they used him as a wing. He was on a line actually with Kulik and Lukas Rusek at the time. At least they started off with him there anyways. And they moved him around a little bit, but that was a combo that they started with. And maybe that's possible. But, with Biro healthy, I think it's pretty clear that Murray-Biro-Rusek line has been a go-to for Seth Appert early in the season when the team has been healthy. And if Biro can't go Wednesday, it'd be interesting to see if they toss Savoie into the fire right down in the middle on that top line of the Amerks. I mean, that's ripping off a lot of responsibility right away. That's certainly not easing him in, but it is a possibility. With Mersch coming back into the lineup on Wednesday, it seems that he and Kizikov have been paired together as wingers. They've had Mason Jobst and Justin Richards rotating in as their centermen for the first 2 games of the season. So I'd expect Mersch and Kizikov to be paired together. Maybe that's an opportunity if they elect to use Savoie at center. But the one constant throughout Rochester's 4 games has been a line of Jiri Kulik between Isak Rosén and Linus Weissbach. That trio is combined for 16 points. Rosén and Kulik are co-leaders amongst Amerks point getters, each with 6 points Rosén has 2 goals and 4 assists. Yuri Kulik has 4 goals. That includes a pair of overtime winners and his first ever AHL hat trick, and he's added 2 assists to his stat line. And now Linus Weissbach is out, though, week to week with an upper body injury. And perhaps that presents an interesting opportunity. It would be a young line. It wouldn't give Seth Appert an opportunity to add a veteran there. They don't have a ton of veterans really at their disposal that they can move around and insulate the younger players. And like I mentioned, we saw a line last year of Savoie, Kulik, Rusek, where maybe Savoie, Kulik, Rosén would work well here, just considering the good start that Kulik and Rosén have gotten off to. I mean, they're not, by any means, 2005, 2006 Derek Roy level, where he picked up 7 goals and 20 points in his first 8 games. So they're not doing that hot of a start here. But I mean, they're going well. They're certainly showing another year of growth. Rosén, I think, just looks really great. He's looked really great from start to finish, going all the way back to the Prospects Challenge. And Kulik down the middle, he looks improved defensively. He's more often on the right side of his man. And of course, he's shooting the puck more. He's actually averaging 3.25 shots on goal per game. That is up from the 2.85 shots on goal per game that he was averaging down the stretch in the final 20 games of the 2022-23 regular season. And that's when he was really clicking. Got back from World Juniors, that performance with Czechia, and just started ripping off goals. And it also coincided with his move to center when Byro got hurt, ironically. And that, I think, might be a combo that I would kick the tires on. We have seen, Cederquist and Tyson Kozak seem to be handcuffed together. And if you go back to the Prospects Challenge, Seth Appert leaned on a line of Benson and Savoie with Cederquist, and we saw some chemistry there between Cederquist and Savoie. I'm just not sure you'd put Savoie that low in the lineup, especially if you're without Byro on Wednesday. So I don't know. The one thing I do like about that line, though, with Cederquist and Kozak, again, very young players, it kind of follows that template of that Appert has used in the past. He certainly did it at the Prospects Challenge, where he put 2 speedy forwards with a bigger body. Seems to be something that he likes to go with. Even that, Murray, Byro, Rusek line kind of follows that template. The Mersch, Jobst, Kizikov line kind of follows that template. So I don't know. We'll see. I think when all is said and done, I do land on trying Rosén, Kulik, and Savoie and just rolling with it and seeing if they could catch fire. But regardless, I think it's going to be exciting to see Savoie get going on Wednesday. I've used this analogy before. He had an off season to prepare. He didn't have that after being drafted in 2022 as he rehabbed from the upper body injury. And Savoie, not the biggest player, but he's like this, tightly packed stick of dynamite. And I think he just spent his summer's worth of weight training and on ice work, just jamming as much powder into that stick of dynamite. And I think he's really ready to pop. He was the Sabres' best player at the Prospects Challenge. He was absolutely flying around the ice. And, now it's been over a month since we've seen Savoie in game action. So I'm sure that he is just ready to get his season started, get his timing back, get his overall game back, continue his acclimation to the Sabres system, and hopefully along the way, play free, have some fun, and begin to make an impression on the Sabres brass, because then the real fun is going to begin to figure out how they can use him when the 2-week conditioning stint is done, and maybe they get him some NHL games before getting him into that, the second week of December, where they could dispatch him to Hockey Canada, where he can join his under 20 mates for the World Junior Championship. But in theory, though, I like sending him down, getting him some games now. He's the type of player that's suited for a faster pace of play. He thinks the game fast. He does everything very fast. And with that playoff taste against Hershey last year now on his resume, I think it's going to be really interesting to see how this talented player mixes in when he's surrounded by some high-level players. So interesting development, fun development, and exciting development. And, I guess more to come on that. We'll be certainly watching. And as soon as those lines are announced on Wednesday, I will be right on Twitter tweeting out the combos to see where Savoie is. I mentioned Kulik and Rosane already briefly. Again, each was 6 points to begin the year through the Amerks' first 4 games. They're not the only young guys that are continuing to take steps. Alexander Kizikov, he has points in his last 3 games. He's on the first 3-game point streak of his AHL career. And I like the way that he's been getting to the net more. In the first game against Laval last week, he was on the right side and he came low in the zone and made a hard cut to the net, took the puck hard to the net and created a little bit of chaos that caused or allowed Viktor Neuchev to scoop up a loose puck and pot his first North American professional goal. And we're seeing good things from a lot of these young players, Kulik, Rosane, Kizikov. Kizikov, by the way, I think he just, it's not only the second year and just being more comfortable this year, working with the English language and just being in the system and kind of knowing what to expect from the American Hockey League, but also I think having some fellow countrymen there is also helping him with Nikita Novikov and Viktor Neuchev. So, these guys are all going to continue to develop, even though the Sabres are off to maybe a poor start. I don't see anyone in the Buffalo circles really clamoring for any of these young guys to get the call up. And that's great. I think that's perfect because these guys still need to see more situations. They need to be out there on the ice late in the third period, protecting a 1-goal lead. You need to give them more situations where they're out there for defensive zone starts with the game tied in the final minute of play to see if they can get that last push so the game doesn't go to overtime. You got to get them out there against bigger matchups. So that's all the next parts of the development for these players. And we do like what we see here early on from the Amerks. And now you're going to throw Savoie into the mix, and it's going to be really, really fun to see how they use him and what this kid can do. So again, be there, be square Wednesday evening when the Amerks take on Charlotte. I think that's enough about the Amerks for now. It's only 4 games into the season, and we're going to continue on. Like I said, we have a full slate of prospect action to cover this week, and we're going to head over to the SHL where William von Barnekow, I just want to continue the discussion that we had last week about von Barnekow because he just keeps finding chemistry with his skilled Finnish line mates and impacting the game in that top line role with the Malmo Redhawks of the Swedish Hockey League. Von Barnekow came out on Saturday, continued to groove in that top line role, added a pair of assists as the Redhawks smoked lowly HV71 by an 8-0 score. So Von Barnekow now has 5 points in his last 4 games. He has a total of 7 points on the season. He's leading the team with a +7 rating, and he's second on the team with 11 blocked shots. There's only one player, a defenseman, on that Malmo roster that has more blocked shots, and that comes in at 12. So Von Barnekow is doing it at both ends of the ice. He's already eclipsed his 2022-23 point total, where last season he had 6 points in 37 games. So here, very early on, he already has more points than he had all of last season. And this surge that we're seeing from Von Barnekow, it's a really intriguing storyline now amongst the Sabres prospects. If you recall in the European preview, we talked about him being that never say never type of player. He has that length and the feet to compete, but studying his game even deeper here recently, you can see that he's added the strength, and it's noticeable as he works off the puck. He's winning more battles on the walls, and digging into what's been going on with Von Barnekow, he added 11 pounds of mass in the offseason as he rehabbed coming off the shoulder injury that he sustained late in January of 2023. So if you go back, season-ending surgery where he had ligament damage in his shoulder and really couldn't do much of anything for about 5 months. You got to remember, Von Barnekow was in Buffalo for development camp, but he wasn't on the ice. He wasn't skating with the team. He goes back to Sweden, gets the clearance to begin on-ice work late July. He only gets a couple weeks really of work in because then he goes off to his SHL training camp and he gets off to this really hot start. And I think that's important to note. He's doing some really good things early as a young player, not yet 21 years of age. And I just want to keep calling it out here on Prospect Avenue because I think he's a largely unknown commodity to Sabres fans. And I want to keep talking about him based on the merit of his two-way work rate and just the fact that he has this increased production going. That's really an outstanding development for the Sabres forward prospects altogether. Now, von Barnekow isn't the only Malmo Redhawks forward off to a good start, as 18-year-old Anton Wahlberg is right behind it with 2 goals and 6 points through his first 10 appearances this season in the SHL. And on Saturday, in that rout of HV71, Wahlberg captured a turnover and coolly finished off a play for his second goal of the season in that big win. So now Wahlberg is sitting at 0.6 points per game. He's second in the SHL amongst junior age players who have appeared in at least half of their team's games, trailing only Airbro sniper Jonathan Lekkerimäki, who's off to a hot start. And he's going to be a top line player for Sweden at the World Junior Championship. You know, I think Skellefteå defenseman Elias Salmonson has played only 3 games this year. He actually has a slightly greater points per game clip going through those 3 games, but I don't feel like he's played enough qualifying games to put him ahead of Wahlberg. So Wahlberg at 0.6, currently ranked second among junior age players. And that's important because Wahlberg is trying to really solidify his spot on Sweden's World Junior Championship roster for this winter. And I think he's off to a great start in doing so. So von Barnekow and Wahlberg will look to, again, bust out that steamroller as they face lowly HV71 again on Tuesday. They're going to play it back with a team that they just beat 8-0 on Saturday and see if they can continue their dominance over that squad. We're going to keep it in Sweden and just hop over to Växjö real quick for an update on Noah Ostlund. Ostlund came out for warmups Thursday in their game against Modo and took a puck to the face. Immediately left the ice, went to the hospital for examination, and apparently everything was A-okay with that examination because he came right back to work on Saturday with a full cage and went to a dirty area for the first goal of the game against Leksand, jamming his own rebound over the line. And that goal for Ostlund ended a 6-game goal drought. We talked last week on Prospect Avenue about how Ostlund's been playing well this year, looking good defensively, moving the puck around, playing with good speed, you know, getting to the outside and cutting inside and showing some good hockey sense. He's doing all the right things. He just hasn't been racking up the points at the production rate that's been expected of him this year. And now you needed to see more production come on the score sheet now that adjustment to the new system in Växjö for him is completely in his rearview mirror. So it was good to see Ostlund bounce back after missing 2 of the previous 3 SHL games for Växjö, and where he earned a hospital visit along the way, by the way. So he comes back out with the full cage. And I think that, you know, the puck to the face was probably a little bit of a factor in Ostlund only playing a season low 15 minutes and 8 seconds in that win over Leksand on Saturday, but maybe less is more. He scored a critical marker and he picked up a season high 3 shots on goal. So good to see him get back on the right track. And we'll see if Ostlund can keep it going when Växjö goes for their first 3-game winning streak of the season Tuesday against Frölunda. Växjö and Frölunda currently tied for 5th place in the SHL. So that's going to be a key matchup on the full Tuesday slate in the SHL. Going to hop over now as we keep the show on the road to the NCAA, where we're liking what we see early from Michigan State freshman Maxim Strbak. He's been rock solid, contributing on the Spartans' second defensive pair. He's getting some penalty kill time. He's just simply playing that sturdy defensive game, really steady, that got him noticed last year on the international stage for Slovakia, got him noticed in the USHL level and put him right on the map as kind of that late first round, early second round prospect for the 2023 NHL draft. Sabres, of course, picked him up in the second round, and he's off now as a true freshman at Michigan State. And that sturdy defensive presence really shined through last week in the series against Canisius, where they picked up the sweep. He's fully integrated. He had 4 blocked shots to lead the team in that series over Canisius. And while the defense is coming along, again, he's kind of integrated in their top four firmly. He picked up his first NCAA goal on Thursday, the eventual game winner, as Michigan State defeated the Griffs by a 6-3 score. Then on Friday came back out and picked up his first assist while shorthanded, winning a puck in the corner, clearing the puck out of trouble before Reed Lebster scooped that puck up and took it all the way down the ice for a very pretty goal. Again, a shorthanded marker. So we're talking a little bit of offense here for Strbak, but that's really not at all how we're going to measure him. His offensive production, it's great if it comes, but he's a freshman. And look, the Spartans don't need Strbak to pile up the points. Will they take it? Of course they will. But the Spartans have another freshman defenseman fully capable of leading the attack, and that's 2024 NHL draft prospect Artem Levshinov. Levshinov already has 3 goals and 6 points on the year. He's a +10. He has 21 shots on goal. So I think they're going to be okay with Levshinov there on the top pair and leading the power play for the Spartans. But we're going to be talking a lot about Levshinov in the draft season. He's a right shot D. Right now, he's a consensus top 10 guy. He's probably, could be a top 5 guy. But it's regardless of what's going on there and all that happening in Michigan State. It's nice to see Strbak chip in and pick up a few points as he gets his collegiate career off the ground. Now, Michigan State is ranked 8th in the country, and they have a huge matchup this weekend. They're going to travel to Boston College for a key non-conference set with the Eagles. That's going to be a fun one to watch. And, if you go back and you look, Strbak, he's had 2 games against Air Force, 2 games against Canisius. It's going to be now stepping up the level of competition here, and really curious to see how Strbak hangs against a pretty talented Boston College squad. Staying in the NCAA on freshman defensemen for a second, have to give a shout out to BU Terriers defenseman Gavin McCarthy. Interesting development took shape on the Terriers blue line last weekend with McCarthy moving from his spot as the 7th defenseman where he started the season. He's kind of the extra D. And they put him all the way up on the top pair alongside Lane Hudson. Hudson is probably the most dynamic offensive defenseman in college hockey. He's a Montreal Canadiens draft pick, plays a lot of minutes. And, they started toying with McCarthy and Lane Hudson, not this past weekend, but 2 weekends ago, where they had a exhibition game against the U.S. under-18 team. But then they came out this weekend for a set against Notre Dame, and they kept McCarthy up there with Hudson. And it was really interesting to see. It was kind of surprising to me that, he maintained that spot. He's holding his own. He recorded an assist, McCarthy did, on Saturday. Now, keep in mind, Hudson didn't play in that Saturday game. He was out there on Friday, got a little dinged up, and McCarthy had a new partner, but still in top pair minutes on the blue line, but picked up an assist for his first collegiate point. So shout out to Gavin McCarthy doing good things early in his NCAA career. And the 9th ranked Terriers now are going to look to improve on their 2-2 start to the year this weekend when they play a home and home set with the UMass Minutemen, and we'll be watching closely to see if McCarthy keeps that top pair spot with the Terriers. Going to head to NCHC action real quick. Got to call out Matteo Costantini. He finished a play off the rush on Saturday for his first goal as a Western Michigan Bronco, as his club completed the sweep of Bowling Green with a second straight 5-2 victory. What's cool about what Costantini did on Saturday and what he walked away with was he also picked up 2 assists. So he had 1 goal, 2 helpers in that win over Bowling Green. And all of a sudden, with the 3-point night behind him, he equaled his point total from all of last season in 1 game. So if you recall, Costantini was buried down the lineup all of last season when he was still at North Dakota. So I'm thinking that, that transfer to Western Michigan, it's kind of working out for him early on. He's firmed himself up as the second line centerman for the Broncos, and he's looking pretty good alongside fellow transfer Sam Colangelo, an Anaheim pick that came over from Northeastern. So like I said, early returns suggest that transfer is working out. And the number 10 Broncos are going to be off this weekend. We'll see if Costantini can keep his early season momentum going when the Broncos head west to Nebraska, Omaha in that first weekend of November when they begin NCHC conference play. Got to head back real quick to Hockey East because I forgot to mention two players. So real quick, Steven Sardarian, got to talk about him real quick because on Friday, he glided through the slot and tipped a puck for his first goal of the season as UNH fell to number 4 Quinnipiac 5-2. But then he came out on Saturday. He added an assist that next night as the Wildcats earned the split in the weekend series with a 5-4 victory over the Bobcats. Now, UNH, if you go and you look at the Hockey East preseason polls, they were picked to finish second to last. But now here they are. They're 2-1 on the year with wins over then number 1 ranked BU. And then this past weekend, they went 1-1 against number 4 Quinnipiac. And Sardarian, as a sophomore, he's been a big part of the attack thus far. He has a point in each of UNH's 3 games. So he's a point per game player early on. And we talked last week about Sardarian briefly, where we just feel he's going to keep showing game over game improvement. And really by the second half of the year, be an impact player in Hockey East. And he's kind of proving his value early on. Again, playing second line right wing, looking really good, getting pucks to the net, liking what we're seeing. Just has to continue to show that he's a stronger player and win more battles. And I think he's really going to be that impact guy come January, February. Also in Hockey East, lastly, Jake Richard. Man, oh man, Richard just keeps going. Picked up a pair of assists over the weekend. He keeps his spot as UConn's early season points leader with 6 points through 6 games. Richard now has a point in 5 of his first 6 collegiate contests. And seamless transition. Didn't expect him to drive the bus this early, but he is doing just that. And now next up for the Huskies is a home-and-home Hockey East series this week with UMass Lowell. 2 unranked teams, another unranked opponent for the Huskies. Should give Richard another opportunity to keep stacking points here early in his campaign. Just a few other quick hits here around the rinks as we wrap up this week's edition of Prospect Avenue. We'll go to the QMJHL real quick, where Quebec Remparts workhorse defenseman Vsevolod Komarov, who was a 12-goal scorer a season ago, he broke the seal by hammering home a pair of power play goals last week as the Remparts dropped decisions to Rimouski and Victoriaville. Remparts off to a disappointing start. They've won just 4 times in their first dozen games. They currently sit dead last in the QMJHL's Eastern Conference standing. So pretty soon we're going to be getting to the point, if you start wondering if Komarov's a player that could be on the move at some point before the league's trade deadline later this winter, that's certainly a situation that we'll be monitoring as the Remparts, consider rebuilding and reloading for future iterations of their club. Going out to the WHL real quick, just a quick note on Red Deer defenseman Mats Lindgren. He's recorded a point in 7 of his first 8 games. And he's doing so, picking up the majority of his assists by simply getting shots through from the point. Not every assist he's picked up to date has been a shot, but the majority have. He's getting pucks through, low, hard shots, and they're getting, gobbled up for rebounds, or he's creating opportunities down low that are getting capitalized. So that's good to see. And he's an offensive player. So it shouldn't be surprising that he's a point per game player this early in the season, but we're going to continue to monitor his physical game and his up defensive zone play. And he's looking pretty good thus far. Red Deer continues to adjust to a new coach and a new system. There's still some gaps in coverage, not necessarily from Lindgren, from the team as a whole, but overall, I think that Lindgren looks pretty good here early on with his 2-way game developing nicely as he looks to sign his first NHL contract with the Sabres. Viljami Marjala, we got to talk about him real quick. Just a quick note on Marjala, player that got off to a hot start to the year with TPS Turku, picked up 7 points in his first 8 games. And last week was moved up to TPS's second line. So he was doing all that offensive damage early on as a third line centerman. Now he's up in the second line role And he's seeing an increased workload, obviously. He set new career highs in time on ice last week in back-to-back contests. Came out on Friday and skated for 18 minutes and 28 seconds, then went right back to work on Saturday, picked up 19 minutes and 51 seconds of work. So it's good to see him getting the increased workload. Now the production has to come back because he had that hot start with 7 points in his first 8 games, but he has now gone without a point in his last 7 contests. So the expectations are that he's going to get that work rate going again, get the production up. But his puck handling skill, his skating ability, it's really helping him in tighter quarters at 5-on-5, and likely a factor to him being moved up the lineup into the second line role. And last but not least, in the USHL, Sean Cohane, the Harvard commit, big 6'3.5" defenseman. He made his season debut last week, coming off injured reserve, got into 2 games for the Tri-City Storm. The Storm won 1 and lost 1. Now, Cohane was in mostly the extra defensive pair role. He was a 7th D one night, and they dressed 8D the second game. And, so as he sinks his teeth a little deeper into his USHL adjustment, we'll talk more about Cohane as we go, but wanted to mention the fact that he is back on the ice and playing games, and we'll be monitoring his development here. USHL is a pretty tough league to move into, but we think he has the skating game and the physicality to make a pretty seamless transition to that level coming out of New England prep. That's it for this week, guys. I said we were going to cover a lot of ground, and I think we did so pretty quickly. Again, in the comments section, please tell me where you'd like to see Matthew Savoie used in the lineup for the Amerks when he makes his season debut on Wednesday, what line mates you want to see him out there skating with. And it'd be fun going through and getting your ideas there in the comments section. I'm Kris Baker. Thanks for stopping by Prospect Avenue, and we will see you again next time.